School. This is CFTheNatural, and today I'm going to discuss something that I have named the rule of collateral. It's a concept in pot limit Omaha that I think's been around for a long time. I've never seen anybody attach a name to it. So I came up with the name, the rule of collateral, and I'm going to explain where I came up with that name, how it applies, and then I'm going to give some examples. I think this is a very important concept because to play successful pot limit Omaha, as I've stated in previous videos, there's really two things that you need to do. The first is the same thing you need to do in really any form of poker, and that is to wait for strong hands, play a tighter range than most of your opponents, and then when you hit those big hands and they have second best hand, bet for value and win money. The second thing you need to do, and this is more specific to Omaha, is to be able to make big folds, to be able to take hands like big pairs and two pair and maybe even trips, a weak flush, and be able to fold hands that you wouldn't fold in most other forms of poker. And that's where the rule of collateral sort of comes in as a secondary one, recognizing spots where you may need to make an important fold. So collateral, the word collateral, has several meanings. The more common meaning is something that you put up in order to secure a loan. So you want to get a loan for a car and you put up something for collateral so that if you default on the loan, they can then take that item and sell it or whatever, and they have some way to recoup. But there are other meanings for collateral, and the one that I'm referring to here is the adjective form. That's the noun form. And that would be something that's accompanying or auxiliary, aside from the main subject, secondary. In the example sentence here, these accomplishments are merely collateral to his primary goal. Now, the first time I saw, I believe, the word used in that sense was actually in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie called Collateral Damage. He plays a government agent of some sort, and he's going to a restaurant at the beginning of the movie to meet his wife and child for dinner. And some terrorists plant a bomb in the restaurant in order to try to kill some diplomats who are dining there. And unfortunately, his family is in the wrong place at the wrong time. The terrorists have no interest in his family, but when they blow up the restaurant seconds before he arrives, he's literally across the street, of course, his family is killed. And when he's speaking with the police about it, they refer to his family as collateral damage, which is the title of the movie. They were not the target. They weren't primary. They just happened to be there. They were a secondary object that was killed as a result of the terrorists wanting to blow up the restaurant and kill someone else. So how does that apply to pot limit Omaha? Well, the rule of collateral is the proposition that in PLO, when the board is paired, even with very low or innocuous cards, it's highly likely that someone has hit trips or better because that card happened to be part of their hand as collateral. So for example, somebody has ace, king, jack, 4 suited to the ace. They're going to play the hand despite the fact that that 4 is a dangler and sitting in the hand. A 4 is a collateral card in this sense. In pot limit Omaha, it's very difficult to have all 4 cards working for you. That's a really strong hand when that happens. Most of the time, especially weaker players, I might add, are going to play a hand where only 2 of the cards or maybe 3 of the cards are actually beneficial to them. The final card is just collateral. It's just secondary. It's just sitting there, and they're not playing the hand because of that card. In No Limit Hold'em, you don't see that very often because you only get 2 cards, and you just can't afford to play a hand like king 4 when the king may be good to you, but the 4 is just worthless. But when you have 4 cards, you can now suddenly play hands where you have a card like a 3 or a 4 or something sitting there that really usually does you no good, but you're going to be hoping the other cards are good. So in my example, if somebody has ace, king, jack, 4, and the flop suddenly comes 4, 4, 8, and somebody's sitting there with a pair of aces, they might think, well, that's a pretty dry flop. That's good for me. Whereas this person just hit trips. And that's the rule of collateral. In PLO, you have to be very careful because it's so much easier for somebody to have smashed that board, 4-4-8, which looks like a very innocuous board, because that 4 was a collateral card for them. So let's look at some examples of that in real life, if you will. Okay, so here's a hand that I played on Bovada. I'm sitting here. And so let's go through this hand. So this player 2 raises. This is some 10 PLO, it looks like. We get a call, get another call. I fold. I have a junky hand here, as you can see. All right, so the flop comes 8-8-4. Exactly what I was talking about before, right? A paired board. We do have two hearts. So player number 2 bets full pot. Gets called by player 4. Three comes on the turn, pretty much a brick. Player 2 bets full pot again. Gets called. Queen comes on the river, does complete a flush. Player 2 checks. Player 4 checks. Now it doesn't show, but let's show opponent no cards. Let's go back a spot here. Okay, so notice that player 2 had ace, king, queen, 8. Okay, so they had a suited to the ace, ace, king, queen. This 8 was a collateral card. He didn't play the hand. Notice he's 36-24. He's actually a pretty solid player. Maybe slightly loose tag, but pretty solid player. He played the hand in spite of the 8. The 8 was a collateral card. Hit trips on the flop, and he rivered a full house. Now, player number 4 here, it doesn't show here, but if you look in Bovada, here's player 4. He had 7, 7, 8, 9. So he played the hand. The 8 was much more primary to his hand. He has 7, 8, 9 with a pair of 7s. So he has a very coordinated hand, could make a straight or something, and the 8 is primary to his hand. He also hit trips on the flop, but he didn't, of course, fill up, didn't get a full house. He did hit a flush on the river, although it's only a 9 high flush. Could still be good. Now, the point I want to make here is that he probably thought as he was playing this hand, well, what's the odds that my opponent has the case 8, right? The only other 8 left in the deck. In no limit hold'em, that's probably true. And if I have a hand, if I had 7-8 here and this flop comes, I'm never, ever, ever folding. I mean, I don't care how much money goes in. If he has the other 8 and a better kicker, so be it. But in PLO, you have to worry about that person having the 8 because it can be a collateral card. The rule of collateral says that they could have that 8 in their hand, or if this board had been 4-4-8 and you had a 4, they can have that 4 in their hand much easier than you might think. So let's look at a couple more examples of that, because I think this is a really important concept here. And okay, so let's make this larger. All right. So this is played on Juicy Stakes. This is for PLO. We'll get a raise from this player. He's 93-34. It's a huge whale. I'm going to call. Now, I have aces with a suit. I'm out of position, though, and I have really poor side cards, the 4 and 10, so I'm not going to raise here. If these side cards were much stronger, I could perhaps 3-bet this, but I think I'm just going to call and see a flop. I'm out of position, and I don't have good side cards. There's a lot of flops that are not going to be good for my hand. So the flop comes 2-3-4. Not really that good of a flop for me. Notice I'm about 20% to win here. I don't have a flush draw. I don't have a straight draw. Well, ace 2-3-4. I have a gut shot. I'm sorry, I have a gut shot. But this isn't a really good flop for my hand against 3 opponents. I check. Another check. This PLO 1 bets full pot. He gets called. I just go ahead and fold. If I had a flush draw, I would probably call here, but without a flush draw, I'm going to let it go. Turn pairs the board. This should raise some alarms to somebody, maybe. PLO checks. He bets full pot, this LRF 826, who's not exactly a tight player himself, as you can see, 87-1. PLO raises him all in. You're not going to fold for another 19 cents. The river probably doesn't change anything. So LRF has, you can see, a full house, 2s full of 3s. And the fish has just a pair of kings. So this is a good example. As you can see, this board looks quite innocuous. When the 2 comes on the turn, you might be thinking, well, what are the odds he has a 2? Well, he didn't play this hand because of the 2. Or really the 3. The 3 suited the jack. He had jack 9 with a suit, is really the way I look at this hand. You have 9 jack with a suited jack. The deuce is just a collateral card. But then look what that deuce ended up doing. And this fool, with just his pair of kings, was willing to stack off, but that's what a 93-34 is going to do. So there's the rule of collateral in action. If I'm sitting here, I'm probably folding after the turn. Unless I'm picking up, this guy has no even flush draw. With a flush draw, you might be calling maybe, and even then on a paired board, you really have to be sort of worried about it. Okay, let's look at the next example. Whoops. Okay. Make this larger. So this is me here, obviously, and this is some more for PLO. So we get a min raise from our good friend Bingo Bob. We're obviously going to call here. We're in late position. We have a pair of 10s with a suit. The cards are pretty connected, 8, 10, 10, jack. It's far from a monster hand, but this is easily good enough to call a min raise and see a flop, especially in late position. So we're going to have a big family pot here. We're going to have 6 players in. I obviously completely missed this flop, unfortunately, and I'm probably going to be done with the hand. It checks. I'm certainly not going to bet. So the turn does give me an open-ended straight draw, 8, 9, 10, jack, but I have no flush draw. And so with only 1 card to come and 8 outs, but maybe more like 6 because a heart may be no good to me, bringing the flush, I really don't have a lot here. So we get a very small bet from this same fish, Plata 1, this 94-44. Get a call, another call, we fold. And here's the infamous paired board on the river. The 3 comes. So Plata checks, LRF checks. This guy bets half pot. Get a call. And there's the collateral card. Both of them have the 3. Look at that. The difference being this guy has the 9. He has the full house. So again, if you're sitting here with a big pair or 2 pair, you've got queen 9 or something like that, let's say, I would still be folding that. When this 3 hits, in Hold'em, again, you can say, well, what's the odds somebody's sitting there with the 3 in their hand? Maybe ace 3 suited or something. In PLO, he didn't play this hand because of the 3. He had a 7, 8, 9 with a suit. The 3 just happened to be there. Here, the 3 is a little bit more primary to the hand, 3, 4, 5, 10. Actually, this is a junk hand, and he shouldn't be playing this, but he's an 87-1. But you can see both guys held the 3, not even one of them. So there's the rule of collateral. I mean, especially on this hand over here, they both had a 3 sitting there. Both hit. 1 trips and 1 a full house. So let's look at one final example. Wow, why do I keep doing that? Oops. Okay. My bad. I think this is what I want, right? All right. So here's some more for PLO. Here I am over here. Get a limp. I limp behind with this hand, 6, 7, 8, 9. I am triple suited, as I call it, but it's a very nice rundown, a good connected hand. It's certainly worth seeing a flop, especially again in late position. I'm in the cutoff. And if I miss the flop, then I just move on. I would very possibly call a raise with this hand. Let's say he'd open for a raise. I'd probably call and see a flop with a nice connected hand like this. And then if I don't hit something solid, I just let it go. So again, we get a big family pot, 5 players. So I pick up a flush draw and a pair of 9, second pair. Not a lot. Check, check, check. I go ahead and check. I certainly don't have enough to bet here. Everybody checks. Well, now the turn brings another 9. Now I suddenly have trips. Problem is I don't have a very good kicker. And again, in Hold'em, this is a hand that you're probably never going to fold. But in PLO, you have to worry. There's 16 other cards out here. Does somebody else have a random 9? The rule of collateral with a better kicker than I do, or maybe with a 4 or a queen and a full house. So we get a ridiculous 4-cent bet here by this Artistico. Folds. For 4 cents into a 20-cent pot, I'm certainly going to call, because I could boat up on the river. I could hit another 9. I could hit a flush, which would beat just naked trips if he had a 9 with no full house. So for 4 cents, certainly. If he bet pot here, I have to really decide, if I want to call. Although against a player like this, maybe, but it becomes a much more difficult decision. This Papyrus calls too. He's 89.42, a huge whale. And the river is a blank, but anytime the board is paired, you can't really say a blank because somebody can be sitting there with a 9 and a 3, especially loose players like this. So Artistico makes this ridiculous 4-cent bet. So I'm getting, 8 to 1 odds, 9 to 1 odds, something along that line. 9 to 1 right here, and 9 to 1 odds. For those odds with trips, I'm going to call. I'm not going to raise. And of course, he has the full house. And there's the rule of collateral. He didn't play this hand because of the 9. The 9 was much more primary to my hand, 6, 7, 8, 9. In this case, he has a suited ace. He has a suited queen. Yeah, the 9 is somewhat connected, 7, 9, but he didn't play this hand because the 9 was in it. But he flopped 2 pair and he turned a full house. Luckily, I lost a very small pot. But if he had made a pot-sized bet on that river, I don't really think I'm going to call. I don't have a good enough kicker. So forget about a full house. If he's got a 9 with anything higher than an 8 in his hand, he's beating me. Okay, if he has a 9 and a king or a queen or an 8, well, queen would be a full house, but ace like this. So even if this queen isn't here, he's winning because he has a higher kicker. I only called because it was 4 cents. And at 9 to 1 odds, I'm going to be good 1 out of 10 times, I think, and it's worth 4 cents, if no other reason to see his hand. This guy has no idea how to get value, and he won a tiny pot. He was really stupid. He should have bet at least 20 cents. But my point being, this is the rule of collateral. The 9 just happened to be there, so we both had 9s here on this board again. So hopefully this video gave you some good understanding of what the rule of collateral means and how it's very important to recognize anytime there's a paired board in PLO, no matter how innocuous the cards are, you really want to be aware that because of the rule of collateral, somebody could hold one of those cards and have trips or a full house and have your 2 pair or big pair or something, even a flush, completely crushed. So this has been CFTheNatural for Grinder School. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the forums. And until next time, good luck at the tables.